Welcome to Twilio Engage Melbourne. What a fabulous afternoon, and thank you all for coming here to join us. We're so pleased and excited to be here as we start off our inaugural Twilio Engage event. This is the first part of our city tour in Asia Pacific, and we're super, super excited to be here. So for those of you who don't know me, my name's Angie Bell, and I'm the head of Asia Pacific business for Twilio. Now, we've got a really good lineup of events today. We've got Ben Stein, who's visiting us from San Francisco, and also Chris Candle, who's our solutions architect. They'll be able to share with you some of the new stuff that Twilio is working on. Now, there are a few things I love about my job, which one of them includes listening to great customer stories whenever they tell us about how they've built seamless and contextual communications on the Twilio platform. Back in September, we actually initiated a communications divide survey here in Australia among Australian businesses and consumers. Now, 98% of Australian consumers are telling us that they'll do more business with companies that actually engage with them faster whenever they have a query. So this directly impacts both the brand and the revenue in itself. Now, at Twilio, we've got 60,000 code deployments this past year. What this means to you as a business is 3.5 days of production of new features shipped to you because we listen to your feedback and we iterate it back into our product roadmap whenever we release new updates. So I don't want to waste any more time. Few housekeeping rules, reminders for those of you that have joined us. The Wi-Fi code you can obtain from a fabulous team of Twilions back at the registration desk for those of you that have not. If you're tweeting on social media, you can use hashtag TwilioEngageMel, M-E-L. And you've got feedback forms that are on your chair. So please submit those forms at the end to the team, fabulous team back there, Diane and Natasha, and you'll be able to exchange it for a gift from Twilio. And right after this, we're going to have happy hour. I was hoping it would start a bit earlier, but we're going to go through the talks first and join us for happy hour, network with the team here. We've also got customers, so it's a great professional networking session. Anyone with a Twilio Rate t-shirt, you realize, are all part of the Twilio team. So there's a sales, solutions architects, engineers, product managers. Feel free to approach any one of us for any questions. Now, I'm so pleased to bring up Ben Stein, who's our Senior Director of Product at Twilio. He's been with the company now for a little bit more than 2 years. Ben has spent over 20 years building internet applications of all shapes and sizes. He can share his experience with you thereafter. But before joining Twilio, he was co-founder and CTO at Mobile Commons in the States. And apparently during his off time, he loves to bike, play basketball, and lose at pub quiz. So I know where the drinks are going to be next on him. I'll bring up Ben. All yours.
Woo. Thank you, Angie. I can't believe that lose at pub trivia actually made it into this talk, but it is true. What I'd love to talk to all of you about today is customer engagement, and specifically how to accelerate your own customer engagement roadmap. There's a pretty mixed group of folks here. Some people have been coding on Twilio for years. Some people are brand new to Twilio. For people who have heard from us before, you know that we talk a lot about communication, right? We're a cloud communications platform. But when we look around at what our customers are doing, right, we have a broad array of use cases that have been built on top of Twilio's platform, right? Because we're just a communications platform. And when we look to see what customers are doing that's really, really, really effective, the thing that stands out more than anything else is our customers, typically developers and businesses, using communications to engage with their customers. Right? And so that's the word you're going to start hearing from us quite a bit, and I'll probably say it 1,000 times during this talk, is customer engagement. And where we sit as the platform, we get to just watch the really, really successful and innovative companies. So what I'm going to do over the next 20 minutes or so is tell you basically their stories, the stories of what our customers have been doing, how they've been successful, and really the goal is to get some creative juices flowing so you can think about what to bring back to your own businesses and your own applications. So when we say engagement, what are we talking about? From Twilio's perspective, it's all of the value that you give to your customers, at every touch point that you have with them, separate from the actual product or service that you're selling them. Right? What was the experience like when they first heard about you? How was your marketing? How was your engagement marketing? The sales process, how was that? You're actually delivering the goods, the support experience when they call your contact center, right? Having a great experience at every one of those touch points is just an opportunity for you to build that relationship with your customer and to get them to become just big supporters, right? It's an opportunity to impress them and to wow them at every one of those interactions. And that was a little bit abstract. Let me jump into a very, very specific example. I'm going to talk about an experience that everyone here has had, and that is calling an Uber and getting into an Uber. So when you first call your car, you get a notification, right? Either an SMS or a push notification. You can actually set that preference. So right there is the company sort of being respectful of how you want to be communicated with. But then something really interesting happens, and I'm going to go very slowly and break this down. So your car arrives, you get that notification, but they're across the way, right? They're on the other corner, and you get a phone call from your driver, and it's from an unknown number because Uber will protect your identity and the driver's identity. They give you a masked number. And if you're like me, you get a call from an unknown number, I'm just not going to answer the phone, right? Never would answer the phone. But if I'm standing there waiting for my car and I see an unknown call, I'm going to pick it up. And I'm not going to say hello. I'm not going to say this is Ben, who's calling. I'm across the street. Right? You just answer a call from an unknown number to say, I'm standing on the corner. Where are you? Right? That's a really strange experience. And that's the power of having context in your communication. Right? And that's not an experience you generally have anywhere else in your life, where you just know exactly what this call is about, and you can just start talking. And that word context is another one that I'll use a lot, right? When bringing context into that experience is really what starts to build that meaningful customer engagement. And thinking about it not just at that one point in time, but at every step along the way. And I'll talk more about that journey that a customer goes through and how concentrating on that engagement at every step of the way is critical. Right? And it's not just touchy-feely stuff, right? There's significant impact that we're seeing across all of our businesses, right? There's impact to click-through rates on marketing emails, lower opt-out rates. We're seeing CSAT scores, going up for customers that embrace these notions and really use digital and digital communication in a way to create that great relationship, right? More opportunities for upselling customers on new products, and super importantly is that Net Promoter Score and making sure that you're turning your customers into promoters of your product. Fidelity Investments didn't really want to take my word for it. They wanted to actually test this themselves. So they did their own internal study to say, hey, let's look at our customers and let's see which customers are actively engaged with us, which ones are communicating, where do we have a dialogue, right? And they use NPS as a proxy for this. And often, we think about Net Promoter Score as, how willing someone is to recommend your product, right? You think of it as a word of mouth type thing. But what Fidelity saw was fascinating. They saw that engaged customers invested almost 5 times as much money with them, right? And Fidelity is an online brokerage. This is how they make their money. Right? So there had a very, very clear, demonstrable reason to turn those detractors into highly engaged customers, right? Because that revenue just goes straight up. And I mentioned the journey as well. So when this is sort of the cycle I like to think about. Almost every business has these different touch points, right? You start when someone hears about your brand, right? That first marketing point. You sell them a product, right? Maybe that's online, maybe that's with human beings, right? And then they get your product. They probably have problems with your product. They're contacting support. And having great experiences along this way enables you to then continue that relationship, right? And then market them new products, right? And continue that virtuous cycle. So, but again, let me give you customer examples, right? Just to make it a lot more concrete. Shopify is an online e-commerce platform. Right? And they do a lot of outbound marketing, and historically, they did a lot of email. They sent a lot of outbound emails, kind of batch and blast email, and then they kind of drank the Kool-Aid and got much more sophisticated in their contextual communication. They started asking customers, how do you want to be communicated with? And remembering those preferences. Right? And this is an experience we all have, right? You buy your airplane ticket and you say, oh, I want to be communicated with over email or over SMS. And maybe when you're getting a promotion from the airline, email is perfect. Maybe when your gate is changing, SMS is perfect. Actually, SMS and push and email is actually perfect when your gate is changing. right? And so what our customers have seen is 5 times higher engagement rates measured by click-throughs and a decrease in opt-outs from that engagement marketing when communication preferences are respected and content is contextual. The sales process. I'm going to talk about Zillow. So Zillow is a online marketplace for real estate. So you can go onto Zillow's website and you can browse different properties in your area, houses that you want to buy. And if you see a house that you like, you can say, I'd like an agent to contact me about this property. Right? There's a little checkbox, you can put in your phone number and an agent can call you back. And if you're like me, you'd probably look at a whole lot of different properties, and it gives you a lot of anxiety because I think housing in Melbourne costs about the same as housing in San Francisco. So you're looking at $1 million, and I'm stressed out, and I go to the kitchen and I make a sandwich, and I'm thinking about other things, and then my phone rings, and it's an unknown number, so I probably don't answer it. But if I do, and it's, hey, this is the real estate agent that you wanted me to reach out to you about a property. And it's 20 minutes later, and I've seen 20 properties, and now I'm making a sandwich, and I'm not going to take that call, right? That's just not going to convert well. Compare that to a different experience. Compare that to me sitting in front of my laptop. I'm in my living room, and I'm looking at this property, and I say, oh, I'm interested. Someone should contact me. And within seconds, my phone rings, right? I'm going to answer that call because I know what that call is. And the agent says, hey, I see you're looking at the pictures of this property. I'd love to get you into this house. So Zillow is not measuring the time that it takes for an agent to call a prospective buyer back in days or hours, but they measure that in minutes and seconds. And across the board, we just see conversion rates go way, 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 way up. 3 times higher conversion rate on making sales when you take that time to reach out, down to minutes or seconds. Service delivery. This is a great one. Actually, I'm going to talk a little bit more about Airbnb in a bit, but I'll sort of tease where it's going. Airbnb is another experience where you're sitting in your living room and you're looking at online listings, and I booked this perfect place in a villa in Italy, right? But the time that it takes for me to go from my living room to their living room, a lot has to happen. A lot of logistics actually happens. Directions and house keys and house rules and things going wrong, right? So that actual service delivery is a lot harder than it seems, right? And Airbnb has really effectively used communications as a way to bridge that gap without having any humans involved in that process, right? And so what we're seeing, 50% increase, 50% faster coordination times to actually deliver products, which is phenomenal. And lastly is support, right? When you think about that customer journey, when they call your contact center, right? And they're calling you because they're having a problem, right? Something's going wrong. They're a vulnerable moment, right? This is a point when one of your customers may be turning into a detractor. And you have that opportunity to flip it over, right? And to really wow them and impress them and make them a supporter. Right? But if you think about the typical support experience on your IVR and they're going through menus and getting disconnected, right, that just compounds the problem. So Zendesk, online help desk, right, they've really embraced omni-channel communication. So you can communicate with Zendesk over email, over chat. Zendesk customers can engage with their customers over those channels, over voice, over messaging, over email, right? And that omni-channel communication, again, significantly higher CSAT scores, right? That customer satisfaction goes way up. And what makes all of this happen and why we're seeing these really innovative companies pushing the envelope is technology, right? Technology is what's enabling all of these changes to happen. But it's not sort of the legacy technology that you see here, it's software. And when Twilio was founded, we took the legacy world of telco, of copper wires and multi-year contracts and months or years of implementation timelines, and we turned it into code. And that is what has really pushed the envelope forward. And it's the ability to experiment and to iterate and frankly to get things wrong and then to A/B test it and to fix it. And that's how these great experiences have been evolving. Right, it's the flexibility of software, right? So this is just a little bit of Python code where you can make a phone ring, right? And it's as easy as that. And if you know Twilio, right, we had APIs for doing phone calls and for messaging. But we have a lot more APIs as well, right? Our goal is to enable our customers to connect over any channel that our customers want to reach their customers on, right? Whether that be chat or push notifications, video. We have wireless connectivity, Alexa. I mean, any communications channel that consumers want to be reached on, Twilio is going to help you do that, right? Our CEO likes to say, as soon as consumers are using holograms, we'll have an API for programmable holograms, right? A little Princess Leia you can make up here, right? And this is sort of how a lot of folks think of Twilio. It's this connectivity, omni-channel connectivity. But if you look at our roadmap, you look at the products we've been releasing over the last year and sort of the products that keep coming out, they're a higher level than that, right? We're starting to think about customer engagement and how our customers are really doing things effectively and making sure that those best practices are baked into our newer software. Those design patterns are baked into new APIs so that customers don't have to reinvent the wheel over and over again, right? So whether that's delivering a PIN code, right, a multi-channel authentication, whether it's your outbound digital marketing, whether it's connecting that rider and that driver anonymously, right? So we have a lot of APIs and documentation of best practice to do these things because this is where we see our most innovative customers delivering the most value to their business. And it's every company, right? This is not just the tech-forward, Silicon Valley companies, right? A lot of the examples I gave were of, tech-first companies, but we're seeing digital communications and customer engagement impact every industry. Legacies, Nike's on here. Nike has more software engineers than shoe designers, right? Nike is a software company at its core. Every one of these companies, if they're not already, will be a software company. But let me tell you more stories, because again, what we see is much more impressive than anything that I certainly could come up with. ING Bank, right? Here's a fantastic example of an industry that's being completely rethought with customer engagement in mind. The fintech or financial services and fintech industries. So there's EU regulations. When a consumer signs up for a bank account, they need to verify their identity. And they need to do it with a face-to-face communication. And, excuse me, traditionally that would involve the person opening the bank account going into a branch office. I think you could do it in a post office, but you had to take your lunch or a day off of work, go in face-to-face and have that meeting to have your online bank application approved. So ING said, hey, there's got to be a better way. And what they did is they came up with a system of couriers who would go out into the city to go meet people where they were. So suddenly you didn't have to take that lunch break or that day off of work. You could have someone come to you and do that face-to-face verification, so dramatically making it better for their customers. But then they went much, much, much further, and they realized that, hey, we could change this experience into video. And they've adapted their onboarding experience. When you sign up for a new bank account, inside that onboarding flow, you can do that face-to-face verification step in video. So they took something that was awful, weeks, days, down to days, hours, down to just minutes in that onboarding flow. So just a great use of technology to create that great customer onboarding experience. Namecheap. This is a domain name registrar. Right? They're a fairly sizable registrar when you want to go register a domain name. And there's a few different personas of people who register domain names. And I'll talk through them quickly. So there's one extreme. I'm not going to confess to this myself, but people who, whenever they have that next billion-dollar idea, the first thing they do is go out and buy an awesome domain name. And yeah, some of you are nodding, right? And you never actually implement the idea, but you got that great domain name whenever you have time to build that billion-dollar idea, right? So that's one extreme. Then you have domains that are important, right? My blog, my personal website, right? That's very important to me. But that's very different than a domain like Twilio.com, right? Or Microsoft.com or Google.com, right? When your domain is your product, then that is as critical an asset as anything else in your business, right? If Twilio.com/API was, that is our product, right? So we need to protect that as well as anything else. And when you think about sort of different classes of customers and different levels of trust that are needed for those different use cases, you start to think about it. Okay, well, maybe for my awesome $1 billion ideas, a username and password is fine, right? And as much as I would hate to have them all compromised, between us, I probably will not make $1 billion from them. That's fine. My blog, I really don't want that compromised, right? So I want two-factor on my registrar account. I want to get that SMS PIN code, that's second factor authentication. But then you think about a business-critical domain name, right? And this is what Namecheap realized. Like, their customers need to protect those critical domains. And they do that by, rather than just sending an SMS PIN code, they'll send a push notification directly to the Namecheap app. They do it on login. They do it whenever someone tries to change a setting on the domain name. And that push notification, it's not just a PIN code. It has context. It's, hey, we noticed you're logged in as Ben. You're on this computer at this IP address, and here's the action you're trying to do, approve or deny. And then that's cryptographically signed from the server to the app. Right? And that contextual communication just delivers such a higher level of trust between Namecheap and their customer base when you need to protect something. So it's about having the right customer experience, whether it's extremely low friction for things that are less critical, up to incredibly high friction for things that need to be protected. But to be clear, you're hitting approve. It's not high friction, just more additional layers. And there was a nice side effect for Namecheap. The number of app downloads skyrocketed because their customers wanted this experience. So for anyone here who's trying to push and get people to download their app, and it's a slog to get people to download your app, 50% increase because that's how they were delivering this service to their customers. So really, really nice side effect of this additional layer of security. And lastly, I wanted to talk about Airbnb in a little bit more detail. Right, and I alluded to this earlier, right? When they need to optimize and have a great experience from the time you book that listing in your living room all the way through the end of the experience. So I want to go sort of step by step, and I'll do this pretty slowly because there's a lot in there. When you're first browsing their listings, right, you're using your app. Maybe it's the website. Well, let's assume it's the app, and you're interacting with Airbnb's marketplace, right? You're through their listing, through their catalog, and you're looking for your perfect place, and you find it, right? So that's you sort of working with Airbnb. But as soon as you book that villa in Italy, the experience changes, right? Now you can have a one-to-one communication with the host. So you've gone from interacting with Airbnb, essentially the company, to Airbnb, your host, right? And that's one-to-one interaction. So you can coordinate your key and your house rules and the directions and things like that. And when you arrive, the experience changes again, right? Because while you're there, you're probably not talking to the host, but you want that local experience, right? So they'll give you guidebooks and good restaurants and recommendations. So the experience shifts when you're in the middle of your stay. And when the stay is over, they're going to ask you to rate it, right? And you can give feedback directly to the host. You can give feedback to the Airbnb community. So you have public ratings as well, right? So you have public ratings, private messages, and you're becoming part of this community. So now you've rated the host, you've built this relationship, and what does Airbnb do? They mark it right back to you, and they say, hey, how would you like to do this same thing and make some money yourself? And how can you turn your house into a property for rent? Right? And so that's where you start to see their massive growth, right? It's because they've built up this trusted relationship, and then they get to market back to you right at the right time. They say, why don't you become a host too? You're part of our community now. So again, just a fantastic customer experience along the way. But I want to pause now. That was a lot of different customer stories. I intentionally, grabbed things from all over the map. Again, there's a pretty diverse crowd here. So I wanted to try to get something that would hopefully resonate with everyone in some way and say, wow, that is an interesting way to engage our customers. It's really relevant to my business. But I want to bring it way down to back to earth here and introduce my colleague, Chris Kendall. He's a solutions architect. He's based here in Australia. And he's going to show you very specifically how to do this. And if we're lucky, he's going to actually live code an app on Twilio to show you how these customers are actually able to do this. So please welcome Chris.